This is the eLearn podcast. If you're passionate about the future of learning, you're in the right place. The expert guests on this show provide insights into the latest strategies, practices, and technologies for creating killer online learning outcomes. My name's Laddick, and I'm your host from Open LMS. The eLearn podcast is sponsored by eLearn Magazine, your go-to resource for all things online learning. Click-by-click how-to articles, the latest in EdTech, a spotlight on successful outcomes and trends in the marketplace. Subscribe today and never miss a post at elearnmagazine.com. And Open LMS, a company leveraging open source software to deliver a highly effective, customized, and engaging learning experience for schools, universities, companies, and governments around the world since 2005. Learn more at openlms.net. Hi there, I'm Laddick. This episode is part of a live, real-time series that I recorded at the 2022 EDUCAUSE conference in Denver, Colorado. In this conversation, I speak with Lisa Stevens and Rebecca Frazee about learning spaces, especially in the context of the Flexspace platform and why designing spaces to learn is so important. And just a quick reminder, you can make sure to never miss an episode of the podcast by subscribing at elearnmagazine.com. Now, I give you Lisa and Rebecca.
We're back live here at EDUCAUSE. My name is Laddick. I'm here with Open LMS. And see, now it's Crazy Frazee. Is that right? Rebecca Frazee?
Rebecca Frazee.
Rebecca
that's
Frazee,
right.
okay.
That's right.
And Lisa Stevens. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about something called Flexspace.
We are.
Awesome. So would you do me the favor of introducing yourselves? Tell me what institution you are from.
Sure.
And we can kind of get into that. What the heck is Flexspace and how did the genesis of it and all that good stuff. I'll give you the mic.
We'll start here first,
Yeah.
all right? So I am an assistant dean in our School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the University of Buffalo. But I have the coolest job in the world because I also wear a second hat where I have the opportunity to work as a senior strategist at the SUNY System Administration in the Office of the Provost. And the Flexspace initiative that we're going to chat about was actually started out of the SUNY side of the formula. And describe who you are.
Yeah, I'm Rebecca Frazee. I teach at San Diego State University, and I in the Learning Design and Technology program. So it's a master's program for instructional design.
Sure, okay.
And so anybody from K-12, higher ed, workplace training and development. So I come from the pedagogy, instructional design perspective, and then I joined the Flexspace initiative probably about 6 years ago. So I also teach a class on learning design, and have fully enjoyed wearing the different hats, working with the different campus community members around Flexspace, and also bringing that lens of the pedagogy that is also should be driving the design of spaces.
Okay, that's fantastic. And so are all of the meetings in her office in San Diego? Or
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm sorry, I'm partial to tropical. That's just my thing.
We've had a meetup on the boat, right?
We
In
have.
San
We've
Diego.
done,
That's right.
we've done meetups on boats.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's right.
No, it's a lake boat though. I mean, it could be a
Well,
lake
San
boat.
Diego.
Lake Ontario, San
San Diego, Mission Bay. Yeah, that's right.
So I have no idea how long. First of all, I want to give a shout out to you. You're a winner of the Community Builder Award. Is that the name of it?
Leadership.
I think Community Leadership Award.
And so this is a big deal. This is fantastic. You've just been recognized by thousands and thousands of colleagues. That's amazing.
It's very cool. It's certainly a career highlight.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to work with, fantastic people and be able to be of service to the higher education community in general.
That's really great. And so this award, why would someone like yourself get this award? What were the criteria, and what have they recognized that you've done over the past years in order to say this is the time?
I really can't tell you.
She's a fraud. She's a fraud.
I was nominated, and a committee reviewed the dossier that was submitted, and
Worked out.
for certain, the the driver was when our SUNY level provost walked into an advisory group, a grassroots advisory group that I had the privilege of chairing at the time, and said, we're spending millions and millions of dollars building and renovating learning environments, and I'm not even convinced we have the right people sitting around the table. And that's about the time active learning was coming into vogue, and the butts in seat metric was no longer going to be as effective as it was. So needed more space, needed to facilitate team-based learning. And so we started sharing in a beta release of what became the Flexible Learning Environments Exchange, and took it to a couple of conferences, and people started responding with enthusiasm. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so what Lisa is downplaying is that this was sort of an internal tool in the SUNY system. And then, like she said, at a few conferences, this was before I came on board, hands were shooting up, we want to be a part of
like,
this.
how do I become a part of that?
And so it's really wonderful because we're providing this resource that everyone needs and is eager for, and it's free to them. So we're doing them a service. So when we, from the SUNY system, the Cal State University system came on board and was supporting it. So we had the East Coast, West Coast, support, and then Foothill De Anza Community College. Now we have Penn State, Drexel University, and then we've had lots of vendor partners and so forth. But what she and some other colleagues originally started as this kind of seed idea for internal resources at SUNY has now grown into a resource that we have over 6,000 registered users from over 70 countries.
Wow.
And all of those folks they come from 1,600 different institutions. So K-12 schools, school districts, higher ed, so private, public, community colleges. So that's part of the power of Lisa's enthusiasm and community leadership and willingness to take action on that enthusiasm. So really building that, it's contagious, and we like to call all of our supporters Flexspace friends because they are. We're like you're a Flexspace friend. Really trying to share our message and bring the resource to more and more thousands of people.
So I don't know, maybe you're the appropriate person, but I want to unpack the problem because the people who are going to be listening to this are definitely from our circle, from the higher education circle, the ed tech circle, but it's also going to reach an awful lot of people out there who have no idea why learning spaces are important. We're thinking about it, right? Even and I admit this, when you and I first started talking, there were a lot of dominoes that tumbled when I started thinking, wow, this is actually something to think about. So can we just take 2 minutes to unpack? For example, my children have been lucky enough to go to school in several different countries. It's just because of the lifestyle that my family has. And I've seen the difference between going to school in Hungary, to going to school in Thailand, to going to school now in Mexico, to going to school in the United States, which is where I grew up. And the effect of, wow, this classroom, this facility is really designed for learning, or gosh, this doesn't make sense. Can you speak to the importance of the space that you're learning in and why this is a thing?
I think I'm going to defer to you from the pedagogy perspective, and then I will jump back in from an administrative perspective.
Yeah, I'll say a few things. So, what you just said is the space influencing the learning, and so to start with, begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. What are the learning outcomes? What are the learning activities that you want to be supporting? So when it was assumed that there's the expert teacher in front of the room projecting their knowledge to the students, you had a space that supported that learning style.
Sure.
Learning, I don't want to call it learning style, learning experience.
Well done. I have lots of questions. I've had lots of debates around that.
No, not learning styles. Learning experience. Right? The instructional strategy of that. So it is now. It goes back to the Montessori, the Montessori perspective and approach, and also there's a K-12 or early childhood learning called Reggio Emilio.
Oh yeah, we know.
Okay,
those
yes.
things,
And so the idea is that the space is the third teacher.
Mm.
And so you are, as a learner, you are, the space is conveying messages about, what kind of behaviors are expected, allowed. Are you supposed to engage in the environment with your peers, with the content, with, instructors and so forth. So there is research out there that has shown that an active learning approach where the student is moving around, talking. Active learning is loud. It's not, the students are silent.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of learning approach is more effective for student engagement, enjoyment, and learning. And wanting to be in the space. And so wanting to be in that environment. So how do we create spaces that enable those kinds of interactive, engaging learning experiences? So that's why the space matters,
Sure.
because it conveys the expectation, it supports what's allowed to occur in the space, what is enabled to occur in the space. If you can move around and be in small groups and discussing like this instead of all chairs in a row facing away from each other. So to enable us to be able to talk, to have writing space, to put materials out, to move around and have somewhere to record your conversation on whiteboards or paper or whatever it may be. It can be low tech,
Sure.
but so just thinking about those kinds of spaces that enable the activities that you want to happen in the space. So the idea with designing spaces is start with the verbs. What do you want to be? What is happening? What are you doing in the space? And then how does the space enable that? And then how does technology enable that?
And so how does this play out from an administrative perspective? Because I'm just thinking about, I'm going to date myself here, right? 40 years ago, when I was in elementary and middle school and those kinds of things, it was, chairs in a square room, there was a desk in the front for the teacher, there was a chalkboard. How do you transform those buildings into active learning spaces? How do you have that conversation in a global, or in a large ecosystem like a national school system? Is it just district by district, individual school by individual school, or is there a bigger wave that happens there administratively speaking?
Well, even though we were absolutely thrilled when ISTE came to us and said, can we participate in Flexspace as well, because it was designed initially for higher learning or higher education, I should say rather. And at the time, if you go back 10 years, our chancellor at that time was Nancy Zimpher.
Okay.
And she launched, in fact, I saw something come up on your screen there about Open SUNY.
Right.
And her philosophy was about opening up SUNY and creating a pipeline that enabled support from preschool all the way through adult learning.
Sure, okay.
So, and I think that's been a wave that's gone quite a ways in the last 10 years, and we're certainly paying more attention to that. But administratively, when you think about, remember the good old days when you wanted to go see what was going on in another school and you would take a road trip to that school?
Yeah, sure.
Well, little by little, we don't have the resources to do that. So just by creating a repository that is detailed enough, we're saving a lot of time, money, and effort just to do the research and begin to benchmark, all right, this is what a school that we aspire to be more like. This is what they're doing. Let's see what their rooms look like. Let's see how we can implement some of those spaces. I'm forgetting the first part of your question that I wanted to circle back to.
Ultimately, I was just asking about how have we seen the space revolution or evolution unfold? Or is that even a question? Is that even a thing? Or is it just logical that as education is evolving and understanding the design of education is, so must the space?
Just let me finish. The University of Minnesota was
that's where I was going.
That's
yeah, cool. All right.
I
don't think of Boise or Bozeman as the most innovative, but maybe that's just me.
No, Minnesota.
Sorry.
University of Minnesota.
Sorry, Minnesota and Montana. My fault.
has a beautiful building there called Brunick's Hall,
Okay.
and it is all active learning spaces as well as student services, kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of different activity there. And fortunately, they had some good researchers there as well that were able to capture a lot of data and, to Rebecca's point earlier, be able to demonstrate that some good learning was taking place and certainly better retention in those spaces. And the tile at the scale-up rooms with Rob and
North Carolina State University. I was just going to say, I think it started when you said how are spaces transforming, or how's that evolution occurred? I think that in the beginning it was this novelty, like, ooh, active learning. Let's explore that.
Right.
And then different universities were creating. They might have called them experimental classrooms. At San Diego State we called it the Learning Research Studio. So it was this little niche kind of room that would support active learning. That was kind of a novelty. And then a new approach, innovative approach, and then at the time, you maybe would get a handful of enthusiastic faculty who wanted to try to teach in that new way, and they would go into the space and so forth. So I feel like fast forward today, it's sort of kind of like a known thing that active learning can be better. I don't want to say it's better than everything. So anyway. So that's kind of like the known entity. Now, how can we make it happen? And granted, you can do active learning in a classroom that wasn't built for active learning.
I guess that's really that's
just
where
I was
my
gonna go.
that's where my question was, because you think of, I can redesign a lesson plan. I can redesign a semester of content, but to re-architect a building, we're talking years. We're talking.
Yes.
You've got to move earth. You've got to build, break walls. These kinds of things. And so that's kind of where my head was like, do you start by just taking those rectangle rooms and then rethinking how that space is used as that more evolutionary process happens, new buildings are going up and those kinds of things, or does it matter?
I also teach a little bit, and if I am not an engaging instructor in a standard classroom, I'm not going to be a very engaging instructor in an active learning environment. There is professional, and professional development is very useful to understand how to use certain tools of the trade, so to speak, to foster that engagement with the students. And I really don't think you need loads and loads and loads of technology for institutions to go out and spend millions and millions and millions of dollars building new buildings. But it helps if you can move the furniture around.
Yeah.
Sure.
If it swivels and we can talk easily, and like I said, writing surfaces. That's what students really want, a place to either put materials or their laptop or some sort of so that's where I guess maybe you would. I really don't know the answer to how has it evolved and tracked, but I would assume that it's going to, the low-hanging fruit are the rectangular rooms that you remove the furniture and put new flexible furniture in there. The next phase is removing the columns or changing it.
Well, I remember when I was in elementary, like the elementary school that I went to still exists. And I know that many of the rooms were divided with those rolling walls.
Yes.
And so opening those, like I'm sorry if I've taken this down a rabbit hole, but it's a little unexpected, but it's just. I'm the innocent that's coming to this conversation. It's really fascinating to me to think about, from the elementary to the adult learner scenario, how that space really influences what we're doing. And do we find in the research that I can see how Montessori and Emilio Reggio are really effective in those young learners?
Yeah.
Because that's what they're used to. Do we see that in adult learners as well, where the ability to move around and have those open spaces and just differently designed, is it really increasing the effectiveness of learning?
I cannot point to specific research on it, but I think the idea is that, I bet there is research on it. I can't point to it.
Sure.
But in one of the tools that Flexspace likes to partner with and talk about is the Learning Space rating system. It's sort of a rubric with many dimensions that are quality elements within a space design that would say, okay, these quality elements are likely to support active learning and other kind of modes of learning. So some of those elements are, you're talking about the adult learner, would be things like natural light, visual incorporating nature into the space, movement, enough like being able to move around, places to write. Like I keep emphasizing that, whiteboards or whatever it may be, writing surfaces and so forth. So I think the ability to have some tactile writing, movement, and so forth is sort of the equivalent to those early childhood experiences. I mean, you're not just sitting there, maybe moving your body. And one of the other elements in the LSRS is inclusive design elements, and they break that down into physical accessibility, inclusivity, cognitive inclusion, and cultural inclusion. So the cognitive inclusion element is thinking about people that, everybody is probably somewhere on a spectrum of attention, focus, sensitivity to sensory, and so forth, light and sound and so forth. So the idea is in spaces if you can provide options for students. So if you need to fidget in your seat, you can. If you want to swivel, if you can stand up, if you can walk around, if you can be in a quiet area or more of a loud, collaborative space, if you can provide options, is another element to the design.
I don't want to downplay the utility of Flexspace, but really, in the big picture, Flexspace is not particularly innovative per se. I mean, it's a database, and there's lots of pictures, and it's very well thought out. The taxonomies, the attributes that describe the rooms are there, and it's a resource that's available to people who really need to look at exemplars in order to brainstorm how they want to move forward. Now, the tool that we're offering more recently is the combination of a learning space rating system, as Rebecca just described. And we've built a model of integrated planning called the Flexspace Integrated Planning Pathway, or FLIP, which has nothing to do with flipping the classroom. But nonetheless, the concept is so many institutions have to deal with opportunity cost. Are we going to invest in new classrooms? Are we going to invest in more faculty? Are we going to invest in technology? They are tough choices. I have much more empathy now. And what we're saying is, look, let's take a problem that needs solving and define a scope and say, this is what we're going to measure. You go in. You don't even have to tie up professional staff for this. You can use students that are trained to go in and gather the data, make sure everyone's on the same page. You don't want any innovator reliability issues. And when they bring back that data from however the scope is, be it a department, a building, a school, or an entire university, you can say, okay, here are the rooms that are scoring very well. They have good learning potential. They have elements of biophilia in them, and they have mobile furniture and these types of things. There's enough plugs that people can plug into.
Unlike most airports.
Yeah.
Right.
So you take all those scores and you put them in a master sheet and you just rank them from top to bottom. Already, the people that are supporting this research are going to be very happy with this, because now you've got some data to work with. And you can say, all right, let's draw a line at 80 and below. We really should invest in anything that is lower on the scale. But if you take your institutional research or your strategic enrollment plan, overlay that on top of your data, you can say, oh, look, we know that there's a lot of demand for these continuing education programs in this department and this department. And even though they already have some rooms that are well ranked, we think we should invest more resources into a high flex environment, a hybrid environment. So it's a very pragmatic approach. And what we're hearing anecdotally, which is really cool, is that unfortunately, we're sort of going into these advisory groups, often kind of looking out for the home team.
Yeah, sure.
And when everybody looks at that data and then everyone on that advisory group receives an account inside Flexspace, you can go through, each individual can look at different spaces that appeal to their teaching style or to their particular curricular expertise. And they can move that into a shared idea board right inside the repository for that group to work with. Now you can take that idea board and start to have discussions, and that's where magic happens, because the faculty start to say, wait a minute, you're an engineering professor, I teach English, I never thought of doing that.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think I'd like to do that with my students. And the conversation starts to become refocused on the pedagogy. And then when the hard decisions are made about where those investments go, it was a very transparent process. It engenders trust, and everybody sort of understands how the decisions were made. So it's a nice, healthy way to make some of those investments and get your faculty to back the decisions.
Fantastic. I don't know if you just heard that they're going to close this room
I
in
did
5
hear
minutes.
that.
It's amazing how quickly 30 minutes goes. But I want to kind of, sorry if you want to add to it,
No,
but then
no,
I want to
it's
give a plug for Flexspace, because we haven't really been able to take, sort of go piecemeal into the actual application itself. Give me, and for everybody who's going to listen to this now and later, what do they need to do to participate? What do they need to do to sign up? What do they need to do to get it going?
Yes, absolutely. Go to flexspace.org.
Sweet. FLEX.
FLEX, yeah, it's nothing crazy new. Yes, FLEX space, flexspace.org. And there's a tab on it that says portal login. So you click there, request an account. If you have a .edu email address, you will automatically be logged in and get access. If you have the reason is that when we created the database, there's a back end that was all the Carnegie classification database of universities. So that's in the back end. If you're one of those universities, it's going to be automatic. If you're in a K-12 or an international equivalent that's not EDU or not in the database yet, there might be a 1-day lag.
Okay.
But basically, if you have an active affiliation, nonprofit, something of that nature, you will get access to it. So it's as easy as that. When you log in, you'll see it's very visually oriented. There are thumbnails of images, and then it's fully searchable. You can filter by the type of space you want to look at. If it's an active learning classroom, esports, high flex room, lecture hall, those kinds of things. Media lab, chemistry lab. You can filter on seating capacity. You can filter on the kind of institution if you're a private and you work with other privates, public, community college. And then within it, so you can search fields, and then you can also upload your own content. So that is the beauty of Flexspace. It is all user-generated and user-contributed content.
Fantastic.
We do not create the content. We curate what is uploaded. So I want to encourage everybody to share and upload your spaces and examples, because there's anything from your campus, because the collection is only as good as the continued contributions from the community. So we're out there spreading the word, and you're spreading the word as a Flexspace friend.
Nice.
And we want everybody to upload their examples and start sharing that way.
And of course, one of the questions that's asked along the way is, how are you folks funding this?
Yeah.
And we have a number of institutions that have contributed as thought leaders and provided some financial resources. We welcome sponsors, and the way we work with our sponsor community is they are partners with us. They're able to upload content, even though they don't have a .edu address. They're able to use that with their customer base and show different exemplars of perhaps their work that's in the repository. And also we find ways to curate collections. So if you're a company that's very invested in high-flex learning, for example, or microphones, these new beamforming microphones are awesome.
Oh, wow, cool.
So we welcome people that want to come in and we can highlight whatever their products are. But we also understood from very early on that if a vendor came in and just scraped all of the user base, we'd be dead in the water because it is forgive the term, a safe space that we can have these conversations as professionals amongst ourselves. We hope to be building in some new communication tools because we're being rather forced to move from Drupal 7 to Drupal 9, of which I know nothing about other than I know we need to do it.
Yeah.
So we're working on a new portal and we're welcoming ideas in particular from our sponsor community so we can better serve them so they can help us.
Fantastic. Lisa, Rebecca, thank you so much for being my final guest here on day one.
Thank you for the
Congratulations
invitation.
again on your award.
Thank you.
As community
Very
organizer.
humble.
The celebrity.
I know. We're in the presence of greatness here.
Yes, absolutely.
But I wish you a really great, rest of the conference tomorrow and Friday, and then
we would be happy to join you anytime. Thank you for making such a.
Thanks again for joining me for the eLearn podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Just push subscribe on your player right now. And remember, you can join the conversation live on YouTube, Facebook, and my LinkedIn feed every week. I hope to see you there. Thanks.